China, a country of 1.4 billion people that's undergone drastic change and development in the last century. The Catholic Church has been no exception. I'm Zach Davis with America Magazine, and we're here to learn just how the Chinese Catholic Church has been adapting to that change and living out its faith and finding hope. Christianity has a long and storied history in China, dating back nearly 1,300 years. It's seen periods of flourishing and also of darkness. In the 1950s, as communists took power, religious practice of any kind became illegal, and believers were persecuted harshly. But since the late 1970s, sweeping changes in Chinese society have led to a rebirth of Christianity. And China today is arguably more open than ever to faith.
Today, the people who do not have faith, which is the majority in China, are more and more aware the importance of having a faith.
Indeed, a lot of people are really interested in religion and spiritual questions. There's a big hunger for that right now.
I'm traveling throughout the Middle Kingdom, its ancient villages and modern megacities, to get a handle on just how the Catholic Church is making it in China's changing reality. Nestled inside a bustling city block in central Beijing is Immaculate Conception Cathedral, or as locals call it, Nantong, South Church. It's the oldest church in all of China, dating back to early Jesuit missionaries in the 1600s. Today, hundreds of worshippers are packed into South Church for a really special occasion. 5 new priests are preparing to celebrate their first Mass. 28-year-old John Shi is one of them. He grew up in a traditional Catholic family in a village a few hundred miles north of Beijing.
If I have a chance to talk to a non-Catholic or people who do not have faith, I told them that I'm Catholic and I'm becoming priest. They, not as past, people might think, that's superstitious or something like that. Their attitudes are a little bit different now.
The ordination of new priests is an exciting event anywhere in the world, but especially here in China, where atheism is the official state religion, and just 40 years ago, being a priest could get you imprisoned, even executed. So today's celebration, it's a very big deal.
During the procession, at the beginning of Mass, I already heard the music in the church, people singing. I already cannot control my emotions, and the tears began to drop.
Today marks the culmination of years of formal seminary training for Father John. But he traces his Catholic roots much deeper, to his devout parents and grandparents, and even before that, to missionaries who brought the faith to China centuries ago.
The missionaries, they build the churches everywhere in China. Today, we can see the development of a church in China, the increasing numbers of baptizing every Easter. Really, we have to thank God and thank the missionaries.
Christianity first showed up on Chinese soil in the 7th century, in the form of an early branch of Christianity called Nestorianism. But Nestorian Christianity didn't last long, and it wasn't until 1582, in the arrival of a remarkable Jesuit priest from Italy, that Christianity gained a permanent foothold in China. His name was Matteo Ricci, and his approach to evangelizing China was completely unconventional.
He believed that the best way to spread Christianity to China was by taking Chinese culture and history seriously.
Ian Johnson is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist based in Beijing, who spent years studying religion in China. He says that Ricci tossed out the old missionary playbook, which often called for imposing Christianity by force. Instead, Ricci worked to find harmony between the Christian faith and Chinese culture.
He learned Chinese. He adopted Chinese dress, Chinese mannerisms, and many Chinese accepted him as a Confucian scholar, as somebody who was as conversant in the Confucian classics as they were. That bought him and Christianity a lot of credibility.
Ricci and his Jesuit companions were brilliant linguists, scientists, and scholars who introduced Western science and mathematics to China. The emperor was so impressed by their knowledge that he took the unprecedented step of welcoming these foreigners into his imperial court as trusted advisors. He even adopted the Western Gregorian calendar when Ricci amazed him by successfully predicting a solar eclipse on September 22, 1596. After Ricci and the Jesuits had gained unprecedented levels of access in Chinese society, a Flemish Jesuit by the name of Ferdinand Verbiest, who was an accomplished mathematician and astronomer, was asked to take control of this ancient observatory, one of the oldest in the world. Today, in the heart of Beijing, this ancient observatory and Verbi's tools are proudly displayed. The graves of Matteo Ricci and the other missionaries also still stand in Beijing. Oddly enough, they're located on the campus of a school that once trained Communist Party officials. Foreigners were banned from being buried in Imperial China. The fact that the emperor made an exception for the Jesuits testifies to how much he respected them. The fact that these graves still stand in Beijing today, even after periods of severe religious persecution, testifies to the revered place these men hold in Chinese history. South Church, where Father John and his 4 companions are celebrating their first Mass, was founded by Ricci in 1605. The emperor himself gave Ricci the plot of land where the church now stands. For Father John, Ricci's legacy still inspires.
He wear the Chinese clothing. He respect Chinese culture, the Confucius culture. He tried to combine the 2 cultures. Have great reverence to him for his fire, the evangelizing fire in his heart.
In a country of 1.4 billion people and a mere 10 million Catholics, Father John will have his hands full as he seeks to imitate Matteo Ricci's passion for spreading the gospel. Catholics are spread so far and thin here that many Chinese have never even heard of the Catholic religion. But in a few pockets of the country, there are some surprises. I've heard about a village 300 miles southwest of Beijing, where everyone, all 1,000 inhabitants, is Catholic. It's a village called Dongergo, and when I arrive, I get a very warm welcome from some of the locals. They tell me they're honored to have another Catholic visit them. We are enjoying a barbecue of shuar, some lamb on a stick and some other vegetables and other things with some of the people who live here. All the people here are Catholic, have been for hundreds of years. Just over there, on the gate right there is 天父是爱, which is God is love. Dongergo has been a Catholic village for a long time, since the days of the early Jesuits. It has 3 churches, a monastery and a convent. But the most impressive construction of all is a massive hilltop shrine built just a couple of years ago. It has become a popular pilgrimage spot for Catholics throughout China. Pilgrims climb the steep staircase leading up to the shrine, praying the Stations of the Cross along the way. Mrs. Liu is a laywoman who's been instrumental in getting the shrine built and attracting pilgrims. She operates a restaurant and hostel that serves travelers. Such public expressions of faith would have been unheard of when Mrs. Liu was a child, in the days of the Cultural Revolution.
在1982年才把那个圣堂开了，那就是秘密的了，就是不像咱们现在今天上那公开，他都是心里装的天主。
Why did the people in the village still believe in their heart? Why wouldn't they just stop believing?
所以这就是怎么说了？教育我们还是觉得天主是真的，耶稣也是真的，也是为了咱们世人被钉十字架上去世的。所以就不管那个年代多么艰苦、多么艰难，教育我们还是把那个信仰保存下来了所以那个年代像知名圣人呀特别多，对他就是为了信仰而丢弃了性命，他也在所不惜所以这个从他至现在就是咱们全村都是教育，没有教外人士。
Chinese Catholics still grapple with the effects of this persecution. During the Cultural Revolution, many Catholics continued to practice their faith in secret. When religion was again legalized in 1979, a major stipulation came with it. The Catholic Church would be placed under the control of the Communist Party, which oversaw all aspects of church life, even the appointment of bishops. A split developed between Catholics who joined the state-sanctioned, so-called patriotic church, and those who rejected it, choosing to remain underground. Today, the underground or unregistered church continues to exist, but the division is softening, thanks in big part to Pope Benedict XVI. In 2007, he issued a letter to Chinese Catholics that acknowledged the legitimacy of the state-sanctioned church and signaled to underground Catholics that they were free to receive the sacraments there. Benedict also stressed that there was but one Catholic church in China, even if political realities prevented the church from being united. Today, younger Chinese Catholics, like Father John Shi, take Benedict's plea for unity to heart.
When I was in America, one of the common questions they ask me is to belong to the underground church or patriarch church. I always say that we have one church, universal church. Both the so-called underground and the patriarch are loyal to the Pope. And when we go to heaven, at the gate, I think Jesus will not ask you, which church are you from? He will ask what good things we did, what people we love. In that sense, we are all one in Christ.
Catholics can still experience some tension in dealing with the government. But in places like Donggergo, there is no underground church at all. And Catholics and local communist officials enjoy warm relationships. Faith here is loud and out in the open. On my last morning in town, Mrs. Liu takes me to a village-wide celebration for the feast Corpus Christi. It's amazing to see hundreds of people crammed into the streets, drumming, singing, and praying traditional Catholic devotions in a fashion uniquely Chinese. Donggergo manifests a vibrant rural Catholicism. But it also represents a way of life that's facing extinction in China. And this presents a real challenge to the church. Welcome to Tianjin, city of 15 million people that you've probably never heard of. It's got the second tallest building in the world, about 70 miles from Beijing. This is China. Total urban explosion. In just a few short decades, over 500 million people have migrated from rural areas like Donggergo to China's fast-growing megacities in search of economic opportunity. Father Joseph Loftus has worked as a missionary in China for the past 20 years and has had a front-row seat to this rapid urbanization.
The issue that is huge here that is not being faced with the seriousness is urbanization or migration to the city. The urbanization that is going on in China is beyond measure compared to urbanization in any other society. People are being lost in that transition because there's no one in the cities to give them the sense of how it is to be a Catholic in an urban environment when all their cultural experience of Catholicism is in the very different context of village Catholic life.
Father Loftus thinks the Church's struggle to adapt to urbanization is a much bigger existential threat to Catholicism than tensions with the Communist Party. Chinese society is increasingly open to Catholicism, in part because of its strong commitment to serving the poor and marginalized. Here in Tianjin, and throughout China, the Church operates charities, hospitals, and nursing homes. Why is it important for the Church in China to engage in works like this?
Because it's who we are. That's what we do. There are people who would say it's important because it has a political dimension, it makes us more acceptable in society, and it does. I was very impressed once when I met a senior Vatican official who was being smoothed actually to say how important it was to support this work because it might lead to better relationships. But his answer was, and I was very impressed by this, it's worth doing for its own sake. And that's what I believe.
I think that's the way to be witness gospel, to show the love of Christ to the Chinese people, to society.
Father J.B. Zhang agrees that the Church's commitment to the poor is making a big impression on Chinese culture. He runs a senior home and social service agency in the nearby city of Shijiazhuang, and also serves on the staff of China's largest seminary, where over 100 men are training for the priesthood.
So we hope the church in the US to see the positive things, the positive stories. Always negative news. It doesn't help the church in China.
Father Zhang wants China to be better understood and respected in the West, and he sees the Church playing a positive role here. building a bridge between East and West, just like in the days of Bateo Ricci.
We learn something from the Bateo Ricci, from the Jesuits, the cultural exchange between the West and China, very important also for the church.
The church will continue discovering hope among its challenges. Chinese Catholics are sometimes seen as either not Catholic enough or not Chinese enough. But the truth is, they don't have to choose. Their deep faith enlivens Chinese society, and their culture enriches the universal church. The tenacious faith of Chinese Catholics will endure, as it has for centuries, bringing the hope and love of God's kingdom to the Middle Kingdom.